Welcome everyone to my channel. In today's video I want to discuss the deconstruction process of leaving a religion or a cult like Jehovah's Witnesses, and I will be referring to that group because I was one of Jehovah's Witnesses for 35 years, having woken up a year ago and actually officially left just last month. So, deconstruction from a religious cult. Well, some people may think that if they decide to leave a religion that's it. Okay, I've woke up, I don't believe it anymore and I'm gone. Well, really it's not as easy as that, and especially if you've been in a religious cult for decades like I have, or if you've even been raised in the cult like Jehovah's Witnesses. Leaving and the leaving process is far from easy. And so what I thought about was talking in a practical way of how one can get their head around making the decision to leave and what that may entail and what are some of the stages that you can expect to go through. And so obviously it's very traumatic for many people. It was for me, and I'd like to think that I'm quite a strong person, but I've had some really low points, especially with losing long-term relationships and friendships that have been 15 years long. So it can be quite painful. But anyway, before I begin, I want to just talk about the religious trauma that somebody can experience when somebody is in a cult like Jehovah's Witnesses. And that religious trauma can include things like coercion, emotional manipulation, fear-mongering, as well as physical and sexual or emotional abuse, which a lot of people in the Jehovah's Witness religion has experienced. So religious trauma syndrome, or RTS, occurs when an individual, and again I'm talking about my own experience here, you struggle with leaving a religion or a set of beliefs that's led to indoctrination. And so it often involves the trauma of breaking away from that environment. But I have discovered that in order to live a productive, satisfying and fulfilling life, one does have to leave a religious cult like Jehovah's Witnesses in order to pursue that. Every single person is entitled to have happiness, peace and prosperity in their lives wherever possible. And if that means making a decision to leave a religious cult because of evidence and because of reasons that are not compatible with your values, okay, let me put it as simply as that are not compatible with your values, then you deserve to leave that environment. But with Jehovah's Witnesses and leaving that organisation, there's a massive price to pay. And for some people it's too late because they're no longer here. Anyway, deconstruction after religious trauma, it refers to the process of examining and re-evaluating one's beliefs and experiences after experiencing trauma within a religious context. This process may involve questioning previously held beliefs, revisiting past experiences, and then exploring alternative perspectives and interpretations. I'll look at it like this. If you think about a physical building, okay, and it needs to be deconstructed, the foundation is the same, but parts of that building may have to be removed and then put back together again to make it more habitable, or maybe more pleasing to the eye, or whatever. But the fact is that in order to change the building, you have to deconstruct it, remove the parts that are unsightly or not pleasant, or are not in line with your taste, and then put it back together again. But the foundation is always the same. So for somebody leaving a religious organisation like Jehovah's Witnesses, especially if they want to remain a Christian, the foundation is faith in Jesus, faith in God. But now you're taking parts away from your old belief and replacing it with new belief systems. That's part of the deconstruction process. And so when a person starts this journey, there are some stages that you may go through. And so think about it like this: when you've left a religious cult, you're fresh out of that community, and you are in a space then where you can begin to question the beliefs, traditions and rules of the group that you left. And like I said before, if you've been raised as a Jehovah's Witness, or if you've been in it for a very long time, it can be painful, because you're losing your support network. You're losing access to what you once held dear. And we can't underestimate that, because it's like a chunk or a piece that's now missing. And invariably it's through no fault of your own, because referring to Jehovah's Witnesses, when you decide to leave, when a person decides to leave, the people that are left in are following the rules and constraints of men. Whereas, for the sake of argument, if somebody's leaving but they still want to be a Christian and they have a belief in Christ and the Father, they then want to pursue that in a way that is compatible with their new belief system. And so there's a lot at stake. It's very complex, but unpacking it is necessary once you reach this stage of deconstruction, because there's no going back. So once you leave, you have to find a safe space to honestly explore your experiences and why you've made the decisions that you've made. Okay. So once you've done that and you put some distance between yourself and actually making the move to leave the organisation, you might have gained some perspective, and that becomes more apparent the longer that you're away from the religion. But you still have painful memories. You're leaving a group that you were once part of. And in my situation, my friends were my family, because I don't really have any family to call my own per se, outside of my husband and my children. And so that can mess with your identity. It's quite tribal in a lot of ways. And so leaving that and giving that identity up can be very challenging. And so during this season, or this period where you've come out of the religion and you're on your own basically, and you are literally on your own, especially with Jehovah's Witnesses that were once part of your life, because now they shun you, because that's what they're told to do, despite the fact that it's not biblical or scriptural in any way. And so during this situation, depending on who you are, depending on your circumstances, like for example, if you've been raised as a Jehovah's Witness and you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s or whatever, and you find yourself completely alone, this is the time really to seek professional help, especially if you're not coping with the isolation. I mean, I can't underestimate that enough. It can be very isolating and a very, very lonely time to deal with. And that's why a lot of people who are in that situation, once they realise that they have no network, and let's be honest, Jehovah's Witnesses teach you that, outside of the cult, everything's satanic. So, here is you, a person leaving the organisation, being on their own without any support. And this is when a person, and quite naturally so, tends to maybe think, have I done the right thing in leaving? Do I regret it? These are all honest questions and situations that a person can find themselves in. I know I certainly questioned myself when I first left, knowing the enormity of what was happening to me, in especially losing my friendships. Had I done the right thing? Could I have just faded? But then I'd be living a lie. That's for me personally. I would be living a lie. Every time I was with my friends who were still in, I'd have to watch what I was saying, or not make too much fuss of of the point that, for example, I love Jesus. Because very quickly in this organisation of Jehovah's Witnesses, if you start professing your love for Jesus, I can guarantee you will start to get some very strange looks, and maybe soft shunning as well. So for a lot of people, especially young people, I've heard horror stories where parents have kicked their teenage baptised son or daughter out onto the street because they're disfellowshipped or they're disassociated. What does that person do? What do they have? Nothing. No one. So they'll go and commit suicide. And as I mentioned in a previous post, there was a statistical report done on suicides within the Jehovah's Witness organisation. It was actually carried out in Perth in Australia not too long ago. I'll try and find the link and then put it in the section below. But it was discovered that the suicides connected with Jehovah's Witnesses upon exiting disfellowshipping and disassociation were the highest in any other religion. So what does that tell you? Because I don't think another religion practices shunning and disfellowshipping more than Jehovah's Witnesses. I think it may happen now and again in some religious organisations or cults. I know the Amish, they completely shun you and don't have a bar of you. So that's very similar to Jehovah's Witnesses. I mean, it is excruciatingly, emotionally painful for the person that leaves, especially if they're young and vulnerable. I mean, what a cruel thing to do. What a cruel thing to do, especially parents kicking their children out, their baptised children, if they get disfellowshipped. So it's massive. The domino effect is huge. Is it really worth it? I'm just going off on a tangent here. For what? Really, parents? Really, friends? What are you doing all of this for? Because you are under the control of men. You are not given permission to think outside the box unless you're given permission to think. A case in point, people are now allowed to grow beards, or now you're given permission to use your brain to say a greeting to a disfellowship person should they come to the hall. I mean, if that is not a cult, I don't know what is, to be honest. So getting back to the deconstruction process, and I'm just trying to be as practical as I possibly can here, because the reality is what I've discussed is very real and it's not to be negated. We need to remember that it's not just the fact that somebody has left the organisation because they found out so many things about it that are not good, that are not healthy. And that's the majority of Jehovah's Witnesses that have woken up and left. They've seen this organisation for what it is. It's a corrupt, man-made religion, using manipulation and coercion to keep its members in line and in control. Many people leave, as I've said, because the behaviours and the practices of Jehovah's Witnesses, the governing body, are not compatible with their values, that person's values anymore. That's just it. It shouldn't come between friendships being torn apart or families breaking up, but it does. And yet Jehovah's Witnesses have the gall to turn around and say, we don't break families up, we bring them together. What a load of rubbish that is. I beg to differ, actually. And so, once a person's strong enough to leave, and I'll be honest with you, I've heard stories where many people go back, they return to Jehovah's Witnesses because they can't bear the loneliness, they can't bear the shunning, they can't bear the isolation. So they'll make moves to go back and get reinstated just so that they can have association with their family and friends and feel accepted in a weird way. But for those who have left and given yourself some time and distance, and like I said, I can guarantee right now, after almost a year of being out of the organisation, I think it's safe for me to say that I'm almost completely deprogrammed and unwired from the whole indoctrination. It takes time, but you've got to give yourself that space and that time and not rush into anything, because then you'll miss important aspects of your healing process, of your healing journey. Okay? It's really important that you embrace the pain as well as the healing, because it will help your recovery process to move quicker. But it's also important too that throughout all of this, through the healing process and finding yourself again, that if you feel vulnerable, please continue to seek professional help. Seek support and take the steps at your own pace. Remember, you're in control now, so you can do things your way. But it's really important to take your time, because then you will find yourself again. I think as well, some of the other coping strategies that you can employ when you're going through the deconstruction process is, employ self-care strategies, self-nurture, exercise, meditation. And one thing that is really, really good to do is journaling and writing things down, especially when you're feeling vulnerable, because then you can ask yourself, when you look back over your notes, why did I feel that? And you can identify with it, and it helps with the healing as well. So I can't emphasise that enough. Journaling can really help towards your healing and recovery. Find community support with people that you trust, people that have gone through similar experiences. You can find a whole wealth of information on YouTube and the ex-Jehovah's Witness community, and some of the channels are really, really encouraging and offer good and practical help and support. Again, I can't emphasise it enough, seeking professional help such as therapy or counselling, especially for religious trauma. And then also, as you're coming away from Jehovah's Witnesses, from the cult, and finding yourself and becoming who you need to become for you, you can start to learn and practice new coping skills. You can practice mindfulness or cognitive behavioural techniques. For example, when you find yourself triggered, I often employ the mechanism of the 3 C's: capture, check it, and change it. So capture it, check it, change it. So capture the painful feeling or memory. Let it sit with you, for example. Checking it, why am I feeling like this? Why have I been triggered? And be prepared to explore that. And then give it so much airtime or space in your head, give it a certain time, and then change it. Compartmentalize it, psychologically speaking, putting a lid on the box and pushing it away. It's not my problem anymore, or I'll leave that for another day. And then changing it. What can you put in place to counteract that? So it's all really to do with being strong enough and strong-willed enough to be able to work through pain and trauma. It's not an easy step when you first leave a cult, especially like Jehovah's Witnesses. It is going to be painful. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Even for the strongest person, it's going to be hard, but it's necessary. I can't emphasize that enough. It's necessary to go through and push forward. And the more you push forward and the more you leave this religion behind, the happier you will become. And you're well on your way to becoming your true, authentic self, who you should be, who you've always been. But because you've been in a religion, it's been suppressed. It's been buried underneath all of this control and deceit and coercive behaviours and lies and the cognitive dissonance that comes with leaving as well. You can't quite believe what you've found out to be the truth, and yet it's always been there. They've just been very good. This organisation have been very, very good at hiding things. But you see, with the flow of information now, such as the internet, social media, YouTube, the avalanche of information now cannot be stopped. And that's why more and more people are waking up. And every single person will go on their own journey of discovery when they leave this organisation, or any cult for that matter. But the most important thing is that you get the support and you find contacts to help you, and also giving yourself space and time to process everything. I can't emphasise that enough. If you need to talk to me at all, you can reach me, Karen, at welcomejesustoday@gmail.com, and I do endeavour to answer every single email, as I do answer every single post that comes up on my YouTube videos. And I'm very, very thankful. I just want to add at this stage that a lot of you, my subscribers who listen to my videos, you guys don't realise how much you've helped me. You've helped me to gain authenticity within myself and to be an activist in helping to expose this organisation. So you don't realise, everybody out there, how much that you have helped me, and I appreciate every single one of you, even the negative ones, but you're all helping me to become the person that I need to be, that I've always been, but it's more apparent now. And everybody else who's in my situation that's getting up and leaving, you'll also find your true authentic self, and don't ever let anybody tell you that you won't. I hope this information will help some of you. Please leave your comments below. I'm always welcome, always appreciative. I always welcome your comments. because I learn from you guys too. And until next time, please stay safe. Please look after one another. Be kind, forgiving, and always show love.